Hello and welcome to the Two Bald Brothers and a Microphone podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan. I'm here today with Bruce Harple. How you doing, Bruce?
Hey, good morning, Danny. Doing great.
Good to be back with you for our quarterly discussion here.
Absolutely. Always fun to do these.
Excellent. And we're actually going to do a follow-up from the last one that we did on application modernization. What do you want to talk about today?
Yeah, so what I want to do is take it from kind of a very kind of generic and general kind of concept down to let's pick something real specific. And so what I want to talk about today is the modernization of Excel.
Modernization. What do you mean by the modernization of Excel?
Yeah, so really what I mean is, it's really kind of moving Excel from a client side, so it's sitting on somebody's laptop or desktop, single user tool, right, to something that's really, it's cloud-based, it's collaborative, it's a multi-user solution or application, or a collection of solutions. So really moving it from a tool, to something that actually provides other business value to an organization and can be turned into an actual cloud-based solution.
So tell me about how are people currently using Excel? What's the current usage of it?
I mean, Excel is just an amazing tool. I mean, we kind of kid around and we kind of, we call Excel the Swiss Army knife of technology. Because, I mean, there's not an organization anywhere, that's not using Excel throughout the whole organization. I mean, everybody thinks of it as a kind of a back office, finance, accounting kind of a tool, right? Because it's that, rows and columns and totals and, all that kind of stuff. And, I mean, it's used by many of our customers to track, marketing development funds, track front door requests that are coming in, to manage their project, portfolio of projects, at a broad level for leadership reviews. I mean, it's used by sales, by marketing, by operations. I mean, it's just a great way to capture information, and keep track of it. So, but today it's very much a single user kind of a tool. And when I say that, it means I create a spreadsheet, right, that has information. And if I want to collaborate with others in my team, I email it to them. So I'll email it to you, Danny. You'll review it. You'll add your line items. Then you're going to send it to Tommy. He'll add his line items, and then it comes back to me. And then there's all these iterations. We'll call it a different name. I might call it version 1. You'll call it version 1_ Danny. So you have multiple versions floating around. At the end of the day, you don't know which is the right and the final version. So it's not really the way it's used today. It's difficult to to collaborate.
So how do I modernize Excel then? What's the first step? Talk me through this.
Yeah. So really, when we think about modernization of Excel, we're really thinking about fundamentally, kind of moving it from, a client side tool, right, to let's put it in the cloud, right? Because now once it's in the cloud, now I can collaborate. Now anybody that has a browser on any device can come in and collaborate and work on an Excel document. And so what I've done, Danny, is I kind of laid out, when we talk to customers about modernizing applications, we kind of talk about different levels of maturity, right, on how deep and how broad you go with that modernization, from basic to advanced to strategic to visionary. That's kind of how we try to categorize things. So what I wanted to do is just kind of talk about, so if I'm going to modernize Excel, what are the steps to get there, right? Because I can crawl before I walk, I can walk before I run. It's that analogy. So, if start at level 1.
Yep.
Right. So how do I begin? Level 1 is just taking and using Excel online in Office 365. Right. And probably the biggest value thing that you get out of that is, I can enable co-authoring of a document. Yeah. Right. So now instead of
no more emailing the document.
Yeah, around. I'm not emailing the document around. I'm sharing that document with you and Tommy, and all three of us can be in there at the same time, updating that document. Right. And we can see each other's changes.
Welcome to the 21st century.
Exactly. So really, that's kind of moving from single user to multiple user. We can all collaborate together. And now I can share that document in a central repository. So I can either put it in OneDrive for Business, right? Or I can put it in a SharePoint document library. Maybe there's a department document library or something like that on my intranet, right? So now I'm kind of getting it in one place. I'm collaborating and I'm sharing that document. So that's kind of basic, right? And so Next, I want to go up to level 2, right? So now, I'm doing that. Yeah, everybody's bought in. We're all collaborating.
Let's level up, Bruce.
Let's go up.
Let's level up.
So next is really now. What if I start to leverage Power BI, right? Another tool in Office 365. So now I can take this Excel spreadsheet that's sitting in a cloud, that we can all collaborate on, and I'm putting Power BI on top of that. Now I can really simplify consumption of that spreadsheet, right? Because spreadsheets, I mean, they can be big and complex, right? And to often find information in spreadsheets can really be difficult. And with Power BI, I can turn it into a dashboard, right? So, and it can be very graphical. I can generate pivot tables. So when you think about decision making and analysis, now let's take another tool and get more value out of those spreadsheets. And again, in a collaborative environment, I can share those BI dashboards and outputs with everyone on my team. We can all collaborate. We can all analyze. We can all make decisions, together. So, that's what I call, kind of getting up to the next level, level 2 or advanced.
Nice. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Next level. Or is that it for that level?
That's it for that level. That's it.
Level.
So we got 2 more to go.
Kick it up a notch.
Yeah. So the next level we call strategic. This is where we begin to move, from Excel, to a Power App.
Okay.
Right. So now we're talking about an application, still with Power BI. That becomes a key piece of the solution as well. And what that allows is kind of multi-user contribution and consumption of that data, right? That was previously stored in Excel. We're getting more towards a single source of the data, because now instead of the data being stored in a spreadsheet, it's likely being stored in a SharePoint list in Office 365, maybe a relational table, maybe. And we're getting it creating a modern form, right, or user experience, right, that sits on top of all that data. So instead of a spreadsheet UX, right, where I'm just kind of in there massaging cells, in columns and rows, now I kind of put a form on top of it. So I really simplify and broaden the number of people that can actually, enter data into that spreadsheet, right, and into that table.
So you're this next level, you're actually moving out of Excel. You're putting it into a SharePoint list or a lightweight database somewhere outside of Excel. It sounds like this is almost like an approach to prototyping something out, and then your application. Like it sounds like almost like you're moving towards conforming the app to be more usable by a larger group of people, easier to use, and sort of where you're using the whole prototyping piece is being done in Excel, but in the end you're moving off it to something else, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically putting a UX kind of on top of Excel, and you're moving that Excel back-end content, into a data store in the cloud, which, like you said, could be SharePoint or could be some simple relational table. And it really kind of broadens the usage and the number of people that can contribute, to that solution. And then you can also begin to put, complex business rules in, right? To really help ensure the integrity, of that data, right? So now I can start putting logic around, what's being entered. So if I pick this, I can just start doing, drop down boxes and things like that, right? So I can do multi-selects. So it starts to move it towards an application, but it's an application that is going to help, I mean, you can secure your data, but it's going to help make sure that data is good and valid and what you would expect, right? It begins to make that data more uniform. And then it also enables you to start, adding, search capabilities. So today, if I want to find something in a spreadsheet, I can go up and, I can use the find button, right? Or the find box. But, now I can actually, with a search, go find a specific row, in that table now, right? And get to a specific piece of data, that I'm looking for. And I can filter all the data and sort it differently, in a UX that's not so Excel based, right? So it's going to open up the number of people, that can come in and enter data, consume that data, get the data much quicker.
What to level up on this? What skills that because we're moving now from somebody who's just editing an Excel document and sharing that document to one where it sounds like the front end could either be a SharePoint list or it could be a Power App or some custom front end for it. But then we're starting to talk about then that moves outside the power user type of or maybe I guess the power user could use SharePoint lists as the front end, but it sounds like Power Apps and starting to do some of this custom search stuff. Then we're starting to get in. Are we getting into development yet? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you're probably getting into some development for sure to kind of create that UX. But there's a lot that you can do that a developer could do, right? Out of the box with Office 365.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily have to write code, to get to the point of using and building, a Power App that kind of, you could, think of a Power App as something that sits on top of Excel. I mean, the other thing you have is you could begin looking at Excel add-ins, right? Which are, adding other capabilities to an Excel spreadsheet that can enable some of the same kind of capabilities, right? To simplify entry of data, to implement business rules and things like that, and to automate some of the aspects of an Excel spreadsheet. So, there are a couple different directions you can go, but you're starting to move now into something that really becomes more of a solution, right?
I'm ready for the next level.
Yeah. So I mean, the next level is level 4, right, which we kind of call visionary. And this is really where now let's say I have a spreadsheet where I wanted to collaborate with external users, right, outside of my business, outside of my enterprise, right. So to do that, hard to do with Excel without emailing an attachment. I mean, I could share something, with Excel online, with an external user. But if you really want external collaboration, you're kind of moving now to, more of a custom application, more than likely, right? Still with, SharePoint as the back end, capturing all that list data, right? That Excel data. But I can begin now also, to make sure that solution is more mobile responsive as well.
Okay.
So, this is really where I want to get into a more advanced application, that can be used by people outside of my company that I can make mobile responsive, any device, anywhere kind of concept, right? And I can also begin, looking at more advanced Excel add-ins as well. So, it's really moving further, deeper into that stack of tools and technologies, to enable, these custom solutions.
So it sounds like a key aspect of this is you're now branching outside your own organization or outside your own company and starting to have people interact with that data outside.
That's right. Exactly.
Okay. Cool. Is there a fifth level?
That is it. 4 levels.
That's it.
That's it. Level 4.
That level. We're fully powered up. We're fully.
You're at the top.
It's talking through this. It really sounds like this is almost an approach for companies to take for creating line of business applications. I mean, it's the first step for all of this is to sort of mock it out in Excel. A lot of data is relational, and so using a simple table in Excel is a good starting point. And it sounds like what you've described to me is sort of like, what are the steps of, and I think there's some. It's what's also interesting might be to talk about the triggers of like, when do I know I have to move beyond that Excel spreadsheet? Because then at that point in time, you're all of a sudden you're incurring costs.
Right.
You're starting to. I mean, you have to have some business case for why can I not just manage this in Excel.
Right.
And it sounds like for some of the customers that we've worked with, it has been it may be anything from like a security standpoint where they're trying to control the data. Like we can't just have everybody edit an Excel spreadsheet. We've got to control certain aspects of the data. 2, we need to have it accessible on multiple, like on mobile devices, or
Correct.
We need to have it accessible to people outside of our organization. So there's certain things that come along that say, you know what, we've outgrown Excel.
Right.
We need to start talking about, well, let's move beyond this, and there's certain key things that sort of come into play where you start saying, okay, well, what's the next level that we have to look at, and is that worth the cost involved in this? And then I think what's interesting as well is when you move up levels, you've now you lose some of the things that you have in Excel, where originally it was just an Excel spreadsheet that you could go in and make easy changes to. Now it's an app that you
Right.
don't have that access to the data so easily manipulated like you could before. But yeah, it's this very interesting approach. So how do I get started? This sounds interesting. I've outgrown I'm on level 1, and I've shared it with my group, and I realized I am in a bit of chaos, let's say, for the reasoning of, I've got to control or audit certain information that I am storing in this Excel spreadsheet. Talk me through the next steps from there.
Yeah, and you triggered another thought when you were talking about before this. The other thing, you were talking about kind of moving away from Excel, and now I'm, in a Power App or a custom app. But the beauty of, as you kind of move up that maturity level, is along the way you can always, export that data back to Excel, because everybody's got comfort with Excel spreadsheets. It's just they've been around for so long, and we love having those Excel spreadsheets.
Sure.
In our document library in OneDrive for Business. So the beauty of these, as you go up these maturity levels, you can always, at the end of the day, export that content and get it back in Excel, if that's kind of important to you, important to your business. But anyway, I diverted back. But kind of getting started, and to your point, Danny, kind of trying to figure out, where do I go from where I am today with a, client-side Excel spreadsheet, and I want to really collaborate on that. What we do is we can kind of get started with, we'll call it a modernization assessment and a proof of concept, right? So really, it goes back to trying to gather some fundamental requirements about what you're trying to accomplish with that Excel spreadsheet, right? What's the business problem you're trying to solve with Excel and with all that data? Who are the users? So who are the contributors? Who are the consumers, right? Of that content? What kind of security, as you said, Danny, is important? Is mobility important? And so, there's an assessment that will help us understand what you're trying to accomplish and what's important, and then we can map that to the different maturity levels to figure out what makes sense for each customer, and then we can do a proof of concept, or we can do a couple of proof of concepts, so you can decide where you want to make that investment. We recently did this with a customer who was using Excel to track all of their projects, right? And they had an advanced Excel spreadsheet. They had a plugin they were using that sat on top of it, and we were helping them modernize that, right? Because it just wasn't working for them. It was an older technology, and they knew they needed to be able to collaborate across many, many more users and share that information. So, we ended up developing a Power App POC and discovered there were some limitations around that, around external users and around mobility. And so then we had to move to kind of a custom app, still with SharePoint as the back end. But so we ended up doing 2 proof of concepts, which helped them visualize and get their hands on a solution, in a very short period of time. And for these assessments and POCs, we're talking about weeks to do these. They're not month-long projects. They're very quick, very precise, to the point of letting you see something so you can decide, yes, I like that. What's it going to take to fully implement that proof of concept in my organization, Office 365? So, that's how we like to approach these things. Do something small, concise, let people see something, touch something, get some feedback, and then decide what's next.
Excellent. Well, this has been helpful. I think understanding this approach, and I have a feeling, when I think about with all of the different spreadsheets that are out there in the world, what percentage of those spreadsheets are ones that it's appropriate just to keep in Excel versus the ones that you really do need to level up, as we've been talking about.
Right. Right.
And I start to think about, with, boy, we've been doing this for, and probably back when I was on projects, I can remember working with customers and the core problem was that they were using Excel for everything.
Absolutely.
So this
Absolutely.
problem's been around since the advent of Excel. And just starting to think through helping them have what is it going to look like if I move off of Excel? I'm glad to hear there's something where we can prototype something within a very short period of time, give them an understanding and a picture of what it's going to look like. And it sounds like, I guess this is recent technology for me, but it sounds like Power Apps is a key aspect of this as well. That's come along within the last couple of years.
That's right.
As well, because I would say I think we used to do things with just like with InfoPath and some different forms-based stuff.
That's right.
In the past. Yep. There's one aspect that we haven't talked about that plays into this before we wrap up, which is workflow. And I think that this is, when we're talking about that you can go and basically edit the data inside of this, there's typically business process and workflow that's involved in this content that I think, along with making it accessible to on different platforms, along with security, that really is a sort of a key when you talk about line of business applications. Workflow, and so I think that's probably one that comes into play as well.
Yeah, absolutely, it is, Danny. Yeah, that's a great point, and I didn't mention that. Yeah, and using Microsoft Flow is a great way to start implementing and automating some of the process flow that might be behind a form, especially in a collaborative environment. If there's different approval levels that might be involved, in capturing information, Flow is a great way to start to implement some of those processes and automate that. So that's a great point.
Awesome. I added one thing to the conversation.
You added value, man. There you go.
That's my role. Listen and read the questions that you've written. So for folks, if you feel the pain of Excel and some of these, if some of these issues that you're feeling right now hit home with you. What's beautiful about what Bruce and his team has done is that it's a relatively short sort of take a look at what you're using Excel for right now, and let's go prototype some things out so you could see what it could look like and really just get a clear picture of where you need to go. And it's great how you guys can very quickly put something up in front of customers for them to see. Reach out to us, obviously on the 3Will site, we have a contact us page. Just reach out that way is probably the easiest way. Tell me I've listened to this podcast, and I'll follow up with you quickly, and we'll get you started and get something set up where we can begin to prototype this out and take a look at how can you address this pain that you feel on Excel right now. Bruce, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
You bet, Danny. Enjoyed it.
We'll see you after the new year. Have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
we can talk before then, but I know I'll definitely see you sometime.
Hard to believe the end of the year's here already.
It is. It's amazing. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.